As I discussed with several of you during our one-on-one meetings, there are several types of study skills, excuse me, that I'd like to promote to students because I think they're just really easy to implement and have really high impact. So, first, I want to give you a little context for why we're talking about these issues. All right, first, I want to give you just a brief context on why we're promoting to you these study techniques. And it resides with the cognitive psychological area of metacognition, which is the awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. You could think of it as the state of thinking about your own thinking, and being aware of how your thought processes occur and taking advantage of certain inherent tendencies and to improving upon certain inherent deficiencies of our normal cognitive tool set. So, what we were promoting are these data-driven metacognitive strategies that you can use to improve efficacy and efficiency of studying. A metacognitive analysis of learning techniques, and I'm skipping a lot of steps here, emphasizes the importance of these two concepts to an effective learning strategy. The first is self-efficacy. So that means one's belief about one's own abilities to achieve a desired outcome. So you have to believe that you're able to achieve that outcome and that it's not some pie in the sky BS, that it is something that with your abilities and your skills that you're going to be able to achieve. You all believe this. You're still here. You're still here. Sorry, and you're still fighting like hell. So, check. And it's further important part of self-efficacy that students take responsibility for their learning and mastery of material. This can take the form of owning. You can think of it as almost owning that mastery and learning of material, not relying upon the teacher to feed it to you, making it your mission to learn and master that material. But at the same time, you need to understand that struggle is normal. This is how learning occurs. And what the best approach is to employ study strategies and tools that take advantage of what we've learned about learning to make your studying more efficient, to get through the struggles more efficiently, to get to that level of mastery. So what we're doing here is providing you with those tools. And those tools are going to be implemented in the second principle, which is self-regulated learning. You have to be able to employ a learning approach that's grounded in strategic action and reflection. They're both part of the process, then they both need to be. It requires independent and extrinsic motivation, that is, motivation that comes from within yourself. But similarly, we are providing you through this course with some tools you may not have employed before. Generally, the theme of these techniques is use it or lose it. Learning for long-term retention seeks to avoid the illusion of competence. And I mentioned this to some of you when we were talking about what to do with outlines. But when you read an outline page, close your eyes, quote, recite it in your head, and then open your eyes to check yourself, you're almost always going to find that you, quote, remember those concepts and, quote, know them. In fact, what you're doing is recognizing them after a brief period of time, and you're testing your working memory. You aren't necessarily testing any kind of deep and concrete retention. So that was the answer to the question that I just posed there. So retrieval practice is a tool used to combat this illusion. The other way in which illusion of competence comes up is incidentally when you first learn a little bit about a subject, you feel like you have a much higher degree of competence than you actually do, and it's because you're learning so much so quickly. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, but it happens anytime you embark on a new endeavor. I definitely am guilty of it. Everyone is. So that's why it's important to use tools that combat that illusion. And retrieval practice is a great tool for just that. And here is a picture of a puppy to impress upon you just how cute and fuzzy retrieval practice is. The guiding principle behind retrieval practice is pulling knowledge out instead of just cramming it in by rereading your outline, for example. This is more of an active process. And the way in which you do it, well, there's a variety of ways in which you can do it. One of the ways in which you can do it that I particularly enjoy is when you start with a blank Word document or blank piece of paper if you prefer to write. And then you pick a topic where you have to commit a rule to memory. If you write, and then you just write down what you remember of that rule. Don't review it beforehand, just write what you know. And what's on the page before you is a clear examination, in a sense, and a differentiation between what you know and what you don't know. What you think you know becomes quickly irrelevant when half the rule is down on the page. If you knew it, it would be on the page. Go back and relearn it and try again. Repeat the process over time. What this does is it fills in any gaps in knowledge, because if you have a standard against which you're comparing your recitation of the rules, and you do, that's your outline, then you can, just by repetition of this technique, fill in the gaps in knowledge. And that's partially because every time you lack information in one of your definitions or rules, what you're trying to memorize, you will go back to that material and relearn why what you left out is important and how it fits into the overall theory of law that you're pursuing at that point in time and in that class. And every time you do that, you resynthesize the material. And furthermore, it improves your recall as you repeat it over and over, which we get to in the next section. But as such, it includes strategic action, which is the process of forcing the recollection through retrieval practice, and reflection, which is thinking about what you don't know and taking action to fix it. So it's sort of a cycle there. And it's a kind of cycle where you have control over the outcome. And that's what makes it such a powerful tool. There are several ways of including restriction practice in your study plan. Here's just a couple suggestions. I gave you one a couple pages, 2 slides back, but here's some other ways of doing it too. One is to create flashcards. It's a little bit time consuming, and there may be some tools online that allow you to do it electronically, but quiz yourself or your study partners and your dog. Your dog, surprisingly, most dogs are deeply interested in property law. So you can quiz your dog or cat on property law. That's perfectly fine. They'll enjoy it, in fact. So you can write the rules from memory. That's what I was referring to earlier. Start with a blank page. Don't review it right beforehand. Just see what you know. Another way is to answer practice questions. That specifically retrieval practice plays into that by forcing you to recite the rule of law for that particular essay question. You could, in terms of what practice questions to do, there are professor-signed questions, more, I think, now during pandemic, because everybody's online and they want to make sure you get a quality education experience, and everybody has all the bells and whistles out, and it's great. But you have a lot of questions to do for your professors now, and that's a good thing. Practice is always a good thing in getting better at writing IRACs. Always. Practice, practice, practice. Hey, there it is again. Practice questions from supplements, which is okay. Supplements I prefer are explanations and understanding. Explanations and examples, and the other is the understanding law area series. So understanding law, I think, is by Lexis, and they're both very good series. Provide real language explanations of some things that aren't always clear in the textbooks. You can always write your own practice questions, and you can hash out what an answer would be with your study group, for example. But, once you're in torts for a while, you think about all the torts that you see in the world, and you could just find one to turn into a question. That's the same process your professor goes through in writing their questions for the exams. So it can only benefit you to think about how you'd write your own question. And, of course, the best possible thing to do is to study released exam questions from professors. I know you know this now, and to always take advantage of that.